Thank you, Beth. Good morning. My name is Gregory Davis, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar on energy monitoring tools. All the PGE seminars and webinars are in part sponsored by Energy Trust of Oregon. We work together to make sure the concepts and recommendations you learn in our events are consistent across all of our individual programs and services. And just to start off with, I want to make sure everybody understands that you do not have to buy energy information services to continue to receive your current electricity service from Portland General Electric. PGE is one of several vendors for this type of service. And also, the products mentioned in this presentation are used as examples. We are not endorsing one over the other. So today, we'll be talking about energy monitoring. We'll start off with just talking about an energy monitoring plan, what it takes to build one. We'll look at a typical electrical bill. We'll talk about monthly consumption tracking. We'll talk about a tool that Portland General Electric offers called Energy Tracker. We'll briefly talk about third-party tools, and then we'll also talk about Energy Expert, another tool that PGE offers. And then we'll go into a summary and questions. But before we get started, tell me who you are. Can you tell me what job description best describes you? And you can use the tools that Beth described before that are on your left. You can use the pencil tool just to mark the box, or you can use the text tool to write in what your actual job description is. So please take a moment and do that. It looks like we have people from all walks of life joining us today, so that's good. That should turn into a very good session. I'll give you just a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds to respond, and then we'll get moving on to the next slide. So when you're talking about an energy monitoring plan, essentially what you're doing is you're talking about the best way to look at how you're using energy and make decisions on how you can improve, how you can use less energy, or how you can change your usage so it's at the right time of the day or the right time of the month. So the first step is really to gather the information. We'll have to discuss ways of where you can get that energy information. Primarily, it'll be from utility bills. We'll talk about interval data later in the presentation. And then you'll also have to keep in mind what your operating schedules are, during the week or during the month, so you understand. One obvious operating schedule is that most people work Monday through Friday, and then they're off Saturdays and Sundays. Not all businesses work that way, but most will. So that gives you an idea of what your schedules are, and so where your maximum energy usage should be. The next step is to collect that data and analyze it. Once you've gathered the information, you want to collect it and analyze it, put it in a spreadsheet so you can understand how you use your energy over time. And so what you do is you kind of create a profile, and if you gather your data over a long period of time, you have historical data that'll show you how you normally use that, how you use your energy, during the summer, during the winter. So it gives you a yearly profile, or it gives you a profile over a month. Are there Mondays or early in the month where you're usually consuming more energy than later in the month, or it could be a day of the week. So collecting that data allows you to see what your profile is going to be. And once you understand what the profile is and you're looking at the history, then you can have an understanding of, well, if I had a certain consumption during this period last year or last week, should I have that same consumption this next period or this week? And so this is where you do year-on-year analysis or month-on-month analysis to try and find out if you're making improvements over time or if you're actually drawing more energy over time. And then there could be some reasons. If you put in a new boiler, or if you put in a new HVAC system, and so you would expect to draw more energy. But if you haven't, you would expect to be the same, or you can put measures in place that will draw less energy over time. And so that's what you can do. You can make decisions on what you can do to draw less energy, and then you can, over time, you'll look at those things and try and understand if what you have done is actually giving you results. Is it actually reducing the energy that you expect to reduce? So that's what you do. Your monitoring plan, you take a look at the information, you put it in a form that you can see what your trends are. You make decisions on whether you want to continue those same trends or make improvements on those trends, and then you determine if the improvements that you've made, if they're actually working for you. So the first place and easiest place to find energy information is from your electrical bill. So we'll just take a moment to go over a typical electrical bill from a commercial customer to see where to look on the bill to find that energy information. And so what we're looking at is a bill from a typical customer. As you can see, the current charge, the total bill is $3,800, $3,832.06. But before we look at that, before we look at the dollars and where to look on the bill, I want to point out one thing, and that is, if I can find the right tool, there we go, the schedule. And you see it in two places. This customer is a Schedule 83. Here's Schedule 83. You see it over here before Schedule 83, or you see it here below Schedule 83. So Portland General Electric is a regulated monopoly. We're a monopoly because essentially anyone who is in our service territory has to buy energy from us. Now, there are exceptions. There are certainly lots of exceptions. But primarily, especially residential and the small commercial, if you are in our service area, you have to buy energy from us. So, we could very easily jack up the prices real high, but no, we're not doing that because we are a regulated monopoly, and we're regulated by the Oregon Public Utilities Commission. And they allow us to charge certain rates. And that's what they set up, these rate schedules, and this is what we call them schedules, rate schedules that allow us to charge for different services. Typically for small commercial small and medium commercial business, there'll be a Schedule 32, Schedule 83, or Schedule 85. Actually, there are more than 80 schedules that we have in place where we can charge for different services, but primarily the ones for the electrical services, there's about 10 of them, and then so for this particular customer, he is Schedule 83, which means we charge him so many cents per kilowatt hour or so many cents for peak loads. So anyway, as we look at this bill, there's really three areas that we need to just be aware of. Well, four actually, because we're interested in the total cost. But we want to look at the energy charges, your total energy charges. You want to look at adjustments, and you want to look at taxes and fees. So basically, what you're really most interested in is energy charges, because you really can't do a lot about the adjustments or the taxes and fees. They're going to happen anyway. Certainly with some of the adjustments, you can elect to choose to get your power from different sources, from a green source, which may cost you a little bit more, which will give you an adjustment. But typically, what you're most interested in, the energy charges. So this next slide shows you a little bit more detail about where those energy charges come from. So certainly there's some system uses, and this is pretty basic. For this particular customer, we are charging 6 cents for a kilowatt hour, and you can see how much they use. You just multiply it out, and that will give you the 275. And then same thing for this is the system usage charge, and this is the actual energy usage charge here. So again, 6 cents per kilowatt hour, just multiply it out. Then there's also a demand charge, and that's for peak demand, and then there's transmission charges and facility charges. So what you're interested in basically when you are trying to monitor your energy is this energy use charge right here. The rest of the charges are going to be there. You know, they do change depending on how much you use, but you know they're set, and there's not much you can do about them. But the energy use charge, this is the actual, you know, when you turn on a light, when you turn on an HVAC system, when you turn on an engine or a motor or whatever, or you turn on your refrigerators, this is where that usage charge gets put on your bill. And as you can see, this is about 80% of the total bill. You know, there's a basic charge, which is just a basic charge that, you know, everybody gets, and then you can see all the demand charges, transmission charges, and things like that, which account for about 14% of the bill. And on this next page, we just show you the adjustments that are associated with the bill and the taxes and fees. The adjustments have to do with, you know, renewable resources credit, energy efficiency credits, our charges. If you're doing solar, if you just signed up for solar, you would have some additional costs that are shown in the adjustments here. And then also for the taxes and fees, you know, in this case it's the City of Salem tax, and then there's a local income assistance tax, and then most people, even residential, have the public purpose charge. This 3% goes to the Energy Trust of Oregon for running special programs. And as you can see, so the current charges are the same total charges that we saw on the front of the bill, which is $3,800. Most bills will also show you sort of a bar graph of your consumption over time. This is just a month-to-month bar graph, which shows you, you know, in May you consumed, or this customer consumed just over 1,360 kilowatt hours, and then they did more in August and a little less in September. And so it just gives you a rough idea of what the consumption is over time, and this is really what we want to try and make for ourselves, so perhaps we can look at it in a little more detail. And so that's what we'll do when we start monitoring our own consumption, or start tracking our own consumption. So we have all the tools we need to monitor or track our consumption monthly, and that's just basically the bill. So really all you need to do is every month you want to get a copy of your utility bill. You want to enter the kilowatt hour data. That's what you're looking at, your energy usage data. And probably if you want, you can do your actual cost data too. So you can just, you know, although the two are going to, you know, essentially track each other. And then you want to do that each month. And if possible, if you have your old bills, you want to pull in the old bills, the past bills, to get historical data too, because if you have that historical data, it gives you more, or it gives you the ability to look at history to see if what you're doing today and see how it relates to what you did a year ago or a month ago, and so with that information, you can decide whether you need to make changes in your behavior. This next slide is an example of a chart or a graph that you can make from your monthly data. In this particular case, we're looking at data from 2007, which started about here, and it runs through 2008, 2009, and 2010. And you may notice for 2010, the blue line right here, it actually is much less than it was in 2008 and 2009. And essentially what happened here for this customer, this retail customer, they replaced their existing lighting system with a higher efficiency one right around March of 2010. And so over time, you can see that by tracking that his energy on a month-to-month basis, this particular customer was able to see the effects of this higher efficiency lighting system. And you can see that they're using much less energy in 2010 than they were in the previous 2 years. So it gives you the ability to see what you're using and to see if any changes that you made in your consumption behavior has any effect on your overall energy uses. So this is a good example of somebody putting something in place and essentially saving themselves money. So as you can see from the chart, you can see data, you can see information. There's good information to be seen just by monitoring your monthly consumption. There are things that you can do. It provides visibility into your overall usage, and if you do it over time, it gives you, it helps you understand what your trends are over time. The data is readily available. It's free. You know, it's easy to get to. It's just, you know, we send you the bill every month, and it comes to you, and, you know, and thankfully you'll pay it. But it comes to you, and that information is there for you to use, so you can, you know, record it and track that data. And you only have to do it monthly. You know, it's not like you have to do it every day. You do it monthly. It comes to you. You know, in a way that's a good thing, in a way that's not so good thing, but, you know, as far as the amount of effort it takes to do a monthly consumption tracking, it's not very much at all. But there are some cons, right? So there's no interval data. We've talked about that before. We'll definitely talk about that in more detail. And because of that, because there's no interval data, it can take up to 30 days to see the usage data. So if you make a change, or if there's a problem that occurs, like within, you know, the 15th day of the month, you really won't see what the effects of that problem or that change is until the end of the month. And again, you may not understand whether that is a good or a bad change until you perhaps go for a whole year to find out what happened the next year to see if the same issue occurred, or if you have the historical data, you might be able to compare this month to the same time last year to see if you're consuming the same amount of energy or if you're consuming less. But you can see it just takes time to understand or to see what impacts are to changes you make, or for you to see problems. So you don't have visibility into daily usage, and it could potentially take a significant amount of time to record historical data as well. If you're moving in, if you're just new to the site and you just moved in, you just start taking meter data and looking at it on a monthly basis, and you don't have any historical data, it could take you a while to really build the curves that you need to make good decisions. So we talk about interval data. We've mentioned this several times in the presentation already. So interval data, actually, truthfully, you already have interval data, and that data is monthly data. The interval is once a month or once a billing period, right? So that is, you know, technically that's the term interval data, so you're looking at it at an interval. But when, in the industry, when they talk about interval data, it's really the ability to capture energy usage in time increments that are much less than the monthly billing cycle. Data can be stored, you know, weekly, daily, hourly, or even in increments that are less than an hour. You know, 15-minute interval data is probably the smallest increment that you'll need for most energy monitoring type of activities, you know. So, and most of the tools available today do look at 15-minute interval data. If you have interval data, it can answer all kinds of questions for you. It can really answer, when do I use the most energy? And it's not what month, but it could tell you what hour of the day or what week or what day. It can tell you when you use the most energy. It can also help you identify problems before you get a bill. If you're able to look at that data regularly on a daily basis, then if something all of a sudden shoots up, if some instrument turns or some machine turns on when it shouldn't, you'll be able to see that over time, over a few days, and make adjustments, you know, before it costs you a lot of money. It also allows you to look at improvement activities and see what the effects are more immediately than if, you know, as opposed to looking at your information monthly. And you can look at the loads just, you know, if you don't expect any changes and all of a sudden you see a 15% increase in the load, looking at that interval data on a daily or weekly basis, you'll be able to see that change before it has a major impact on your bottom line. And in some cases, you can also find out how weather affects your energy usage because many tools pull in weather data as well as the interval data and use it to model what you should be looking at or what you should be consuming on a day-to-day basis. So typical problems that can be identified by using interval data. You can determine if there is a piece of equipment that is starting up too soon, or if there's a piece of equipment that's shutting down much too late. You can take a look and see what's happening on weekends and holidays. You know, if you're looking at just monthly data, you really can't differentiate between Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesdays. But if you're looking at interval data, you can determine if, you know, you're pulling or consuming information on a weekend when you shouldn't. You can determine when equipment starts and stops too soon or when no one's around. You can determine if there's some equipment is controlled or has been reprogrammed incorrectly. And if you see a droppage in usage, you can determine if a piece of equipment is actually failing. So there's all kinds of things that you can look at with interval data that gives you visibility that you wouldn't normally have looking at your monthly bill. So you can see the benefits of looking at interval data. And so we are going to take a look at one tool that's available to you today from Portland General, and it's called Energy Tracker. So Energy Tracker is a free online tool that residential and most commercial customers have access to. All you have to do is log on to portlandgeneral.com. Provide your account information, and it'll send you over, or you can then access Energy Tracker, and on the Energy Tracker site, you can look at your usage patterns. What we're looking at here is we're looking at my home usage pattern, but we're looking at my usage for the month of March, and I took a picture of this data on the 15th of this month or the 16th of this month, so you can see what the usage pattern is throughout the month or throughout this month. You have the ability to look at daily usage patterns or weekly or monthly usage patterns, and you have the ability to actually add in. If you see this little line right here, it shows you what the weather was like on those particular days. So you can take a look and see how your usage is compared to the weather conditions. This next slide will show you a graph of the hourly data. I just chose a particular day, and this is an hour-by-hour energy usage. So you can see that we have interval data down to the hour with Energy Tracker. Now, this data is downloadable or exportable into a CSV file, which is something you can very easily import into a spreadsheet tool like Excel. But you can download that, download this hourly information, put it in your spreadsheet, and then that gives you a little more detail, actually a lot more detail into your usage patterns, and you can make better decisions. Another capability that this tool has is that includes a comparison. So you can compare your one billing period to another billing period. I can compare last month to this month. And so that kind of gives you the ability to just kind of give you a rough idea if you're making improvements from month to month or things are, or if you're consuming more energy from month to month. So in the tool, there are up to 13 months of meter data, of historical meter data available to you. So you can download historical data. So if you're looking for your old bills, you can't find your old bills, well, you might be able to go to Energy Tracker and download your historical data, which is fairly convenient. One thing I need to tell you, though, but if you export the data, you only export what's on the screen. So if you're trying to export a month of data, you'll have to do it, or excuse me, more than a month of data, you'll have to do it 1 month at a time, because you only can do, the largest on-screen view that you have is 1 month, so you'll have to do 1 month, and then you can just choose the previous month and you export that month and then export the previous month. So it'll take a little time, but it certainly is much easier than trying to find all the bills. So I have another question for everybody. How many of you have created a user profile on portlandgeneral.com? So again, use the tools just to say, mark the yes box or the no box, or if you want to say more, you can use the text tool.
Gregory, I'm going to interrupt here for a second while people filled that out. For those of you that joined late, in order to see the tools that Gregory's mentioning, there is a marker tool that is underneath the Quick Start tab in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. If you click on that, the annotation tools will appear. And then also, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, there is a chat icon that looks like a little speaking bubble. If you click on that, you will see the chat window. And if you have questions, please submit them to me through chat, and I will ask them of Gregory at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So it's almost 50-50. About half of you have, and half of you have not created a user profile on portlandjournal.com. So for those of you who have, I have a question for you. Have you viewed your energy usage information with Energy Tracker? And I'll give you a moment to respond to that as well. Okay, looks like a lot of you have. I don't know if it's with you, but the reason I logged into portlandgeneral.com for my residential account was because I wanted to access Energy Tracker. So in order to use it, you do have to log in. So that's why I did log in, to try Energy Tracker. Okay, moving on. The next thing we're going to talk about very briefly is third-party tools. So we've talked about how you can just use your billing information and create your own little spreadsheet. We've talked about Energy Tracker and how you can download the information or use that information to input it into your spreadsheet and to view your usage. There are also third-party tools available where you can either upload that information into this third-party tool, or you can have it automatically uploaded into the third-party tool, and depending on which tool you use determines how you can have that information automatically uploaded. But there's several tools out there, and the advantage of the tools is they will automatically create the graphs and charts that you might want to look at to see what your energy usage is like. Now, again, there are several third-party tools available. These tools will create the charts and graphs and your usage data for you automatically, so you don't have to worry about formatting your spreadsheet or anything like that. It just does it automatically for you. There are two different types. Well, there are paid tools out there, and there are free options available as well. The one I'm showing you, Energy Star Portfolio Manager, is a free tool. It is essentially sponsored by the Energy Star program, which is a federal program. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Energy Star rating that buildings have. For those of you who are in the Portland city limits, there is going to be a new requirement that your building, if it's 20,000 square feet or above, your building is going to require an Energy Star rating. I think for 2015, it starts with buildings that are 50,000 square feet or above, and then in 2016, it's going to be buildings that are 20,000 square feet and above. So they are asking those customers to use Portfolio Manager to input their energy usage to get an Energy Star rating. Again, this is a free tool you can use. If you go to the Energy Star Portfolio Manager website, and we do provide a link to that at the end of the presentation, which we will mail to you. But they also have not only the Portfolio Manager tool, but other tools that you potentially could use to monitor your energy usage. Some are free, some are paid. So the free options, the free services, they generally include, the graph and the charting capabilities, but sometimes the free tools will only analyze monthly billing data. They don't look for interval data, or they don't ask for interval data. So for the paid services, they include the graphing and the charting. They also include the using interval data, and it depends on what tool you have, but they can particularly use the interval data. Potentially use the interval data, and then they will also, many of the tools will also forecast energy usage. They'll use your historical data and any modeling capability that they have to create a forecast of what they think you should be using in the future. And some are even sophisticated enough where you can add information about any energy saving measures that you may put in place, and they will forecast what you should be able to, what reductions you should have in energy usage because of this energy saving measure, and they will actually monitor that as well. So a lot of options out there for you that are available, and you can take a look. Certainly you can go online, you can go to the Energy Star website to take a look and see what options are there for you. So one more question for you. How many of you track your energy usage today? Again, you can use the tool to determine, to answer the question, and if you have a special answer, you can use the text box. So I'm seeing responses essentially all over the map. I see a lot of I don't track at all, to a lot of people who just look at the monthly bills. I have to share this. Somebody said, I'm afraid to look. So, and then some people are using spreadsheets, and there is 1 or 2 people who are using third-party tools. So the last section of our presentation is going to be talking about Energy Expert, and this is essentially one of those tools that's available for you. It is from Portland General Electric. Essentially, it's an online tool that helps you monitor and analyze your energy. You can apply it to a single meter, multiple meters, a facility, or entire complex, or we have customers who have multiple sites, across our service area, and where they have enrolled Energy Expert onto every site, and so they can monitor all of their sites. Energy Expert uses 15-minute interval data that is downloaded from the meter, and that information is uploaded into the Energy Expert tool and is analyzed. Essentially what happens is we download that meter information on a daily basis. At about 2 or 3 in the morning, we call up the meter. Meter information is put in our computers. We put that data in a special file, and we upload that file into the Energy Expert tool, which essentially manipulates the data in such a way so that you can create the charts and graphs and reports that you would need to monitor your energy usage. So users can access that data. They can create their own charts and graphs and reports that they need. That data is available to our users by about 10 or 11 o'clock every morning. So, we download it from the meter, the previous day's usage from the meter at about 2 in the morning, and then that is typically available to users at about 10 or 11 in the morning. So you can do a detailed analysis of your data for monthly, weekly, daily, or even hourly increments, depending on what you're looking for and what specific needs you may have. You can also set up the system so reports are automatically sent to you. If you're looking at a specific building, you want to make sure that it isn't pulling or consuming more energy than expected. You can have a report sent to you every day just to monitor that building, or multiple buildings. You can have multiple reports sent to you so it shows you on a daily basis what's happening at your site. So this next slide just shows you an example of one view from an Energy Expert website, from the Energy Expert website. This is just looking at a very top level. It's looking at 5 buildings. As you can see, there's one building here that is the primary user of energy, but there are other buildings that are being monitored as well. As you can see, there's a OK indicator here, which essentially tells you that the usage for the day, for this period, is OK. We're not moving into areas where we're over-consuming energy. If we were, we would start seeing red. Perhaps this building would be consuming more energy than expected. Then we would see this whole bar turn red, and then the OK would turn into a monitor and turn into a red little box there. So, but with this view, you can view energy usage for multiple buildings simultaneously, so you don't have to look at each building separately. So this next view is looking at a single building and a single day. And you can see here that we are looking at what the projected usage should be, and that is the green area right here. You see this is the band here defines what the projected usage should be. The red area defines usage that exceeds the projection, and the blue area defines areas that are below the expectations. And so you can see we've created, for this particular day, we've created a model of what the expectation should be throughout the day. And you can see that in the morning, things started too soon. We started consuming energy much too soon. And in the evening, we continue to consume energy much later than the expected date. Now, this could be a problem. This could be a machine that's turning on too early, or a machine that's not turning on late enough, or this could be expected. This could potentially be, maybe you're running a special shift and you knew that you were going to run this machinery earlier in the morning than normal and run later than normal, and so this will just tell you what your actual usage is. So just because it's outside of the expected range doesn't mean it's bad, but if you do see something out of this expected range, it gets you to ask those questions. Why is it out the expected range? And make decisions on what you're going to do to get it back within that expected range. In this particular case, these problems are very similar to an example where a company changed their shifts. They could have changed their work schedules, and before they were working from, they were working a midnight shift and they were working a partial swing shift, and so the machinery was working, but then, and maybe the HVAC systems were working, or whatever, whatever you needed to, things were working to sustain the environment. They changed their shifts, and all of a sudden, no one thought about changing the actual, making adjustments to the climate controls. And so potentially what happens is that, you have your air conditioners running and nobody's around. So this is something that could happen if you make changes to your operating conditions and you don't make changes to the equipment that supports those operating conditions. This is another view that you can look at through Energy Expert. It's a monthly view, and it gives you a very top-level view of a building, what's happening on a day-to-day basis. In this case, we see that Wednesdays, the equipment doesn't seem to be turning off. On Wednesdays, the equipment doesn't seem to be turning off as often as it should be, or as early as it should be. And then there's another problem you see on Sundays. You see almost no usage, but then all of a sudden on the 30th, you see a lot of usage. Now with Energy Expert, you can drill in, and that's what we're going to do on the next slide. We're going to drill in on that Sunday and find out that there is unscheduled usage. Now this is actually a real example where a company, they made a change. There was a special event that happened one week. They made a change to their air conditioner system. They were able to support the activities that were going on for that particular week, but nobody made a change back. And they weren't watching it. They weren't monitoring their usage. And all of a sudden they start seeing the Sundays start consuming energy, every week. And nobody understood what was going on, or nobody knew what was going on, because actually nobody was there. This is a Sunday when nobody is normally at the plant. Nobody's there to notice that the air conditioners are cycling on and off. And so they went on for about 6 to 8 weeks before they realized, they started looking at the data, they realized, oh, we have a problem here. And when they determined that what the problem was, they figured out what they needed to do. They just reset their HVAC systems. But unfortunately, since it took them a couple of months to figure it out, they spent an extra $700 in unnecessary energy costs. So this is what a tool like this can do for you. It gives you visibility into what's happening with your plant. So we'll go into just a quick summary of what we talked about. So we've talked about gathering information. We talked about how you can either use your utility bill to gather information, or you can use Energy Tracker to gather that information. And you can use that information and put it in your own spreadsheet, or you can use a third-party tool to gather that information and collect that data for you and create those load shapes for you. You can look at those charts and graphs that will enable you to see, what your typical usage is during the day, during the month, during the week. And once you've created those profiles, you can make some decisions on whether you want to try and make improvements. You could take a look at the data and you evaluate, can I turn off some HVAC systems a little bit earlier, or can I turn them on later in the day? Am I necessarily using the HVAC systems? Maybe you have multiple HVAC systems. Am I making sure that I'm only using ones that are in areas that are occupied, and I'm not trying to cool an empty space? So you can ask those questions, and once you've asked those questions, you can make some adjustments. And then you can try and understand if those adjustments are actually saving you money. So coming up with a comprehensive monitoring plan is a good idea. There's a lot of tools out there that will help you do that. And if you have any questions, we are definitely here to help you do that. As I indicated before, there are some links here to Energy Star Portfolio Manager if you're looking for third-party tools. We also have links to Portland General Electric. We have links to the Energy Tracker. And if you're interested in Energy Expert, well, there's a link for that as well. All of these will be in the material that we share with you that Beth is going to send to you after the webinar is over with. And if you are interested in learning more about PGE's Energy Information services and products that were shown during this webinar, please feel free to contact me, Gregory Davis. My contact information, that's my phone number and email address that you can use to ask questions or just get more information. I'm happy to respond. And if you want an on-site demonstration of any of the tools or the Energy Expert tools, that's what I'm primarily responsible for, I'll be happy to come out there and talk to your group about that. PGE and Energy Trust provide free energy efficiency consultations to assist businesses in identifying saving opportunities by phone or on site. If you are interested in learning more, you can visit portlandgeneralelectric.com/business or contact Paula Conway about commercial customer information, or Darren Spencer about industrial customer information. And at this point, I'd like to return control back over to our host, Beth.
Thank you, Gregory. Before we proceed to the question and answer portion of today's webinar, I'd like to remind you all that you can continue to submit questions to me through chat, and I'll ask them of Gregory. Gregory, for our first question, we have, can I download energy, oh, sorry, you already answered that question, and we covered that in chat. One moment, please, I apologize. For Energy Tracker, is this a free tool or is there a charge for this? And if so, is it per meter? And are all meters providing these pulses? Can we see real time?
So let's see, there's a bunch of questions there. First question I thought I heard was Energy Tracker. Is it a free tool? The answer is yes, it is free. I do want to emphasize that it is not accessible by everybody. Primarily our Schedule 32 and Schedule 83 customers have access to Energy Tracker. If you're an 85 or an 89 commercial customer, those are really larger commercial customers. I do not think Energy Tracker is available to you, but the 32s and the 83s primarily are, I would say, 90% of the customers out there. So if you are a small to medium-sized commercial customer, you should have access to that. The next part of the question was, Beth, if you don't mind repeating.
Are all the meters providing these pulses to Energy Tracker, and can we see this in real time?
So I'll answer the second part of the question first. No, you can't see it in real time, because essentially what happens is that our computer systems talk to the meters, and there's no consistent schedule as to when that meter might be queried for its information. So we can't guarantee that we can't guarantee that the data is going to be there at any specific time, although it's usually daily when it's available, and it is definitely not real time. And then there is no per meter charge for Energy Tracker. It's all the same. It's free for Energy Tracker. And did I answer all the questions there, or I think there's one little bit?
I believe you did answer all the questions, and if you didn't, the person who asked the questions, please feel free to chat with me, and I will answer that. The next question is, does Energy Tracker allow you to compare your usage with others that are similar to you? Again, this is Energy Tracker.
No, Energy Tracker does not allow that, but I do believe that if you go to that Energy Star 2 Portfolio Manager, I think that you can compare your usage to companies like yours. So Energy Tracker does not, but there are tools out there that do allow you to do some comparisons.
Great, thank you, Gregory. And our next question is, what rules of thumb can I use when looking at my energy consumption to help me determine if I need to make some changes?
I think the primary rule of thumb for that would be to try and get as much historical data as you can. So you can do, month-to-month comparisons, like January to January comparisons, or week-to-week comparisons, first week of one month versus first week of the other month. That's where you get the most information, because sometimes if you go from a July to September, or July to August, or August to September, let's try that, because sometimes August could be very hot, and then your September could be, that's when things start cooling off. And so if you try and do a month to, July to September, August to September comparison, you may not really get a good understanding of what's happening, because there is a weather component there that really has an impact on energy usage for most commercial customers. So try and get historical data, and enough so you can do year-on-year comparisons, or enough historical data where you can do, first week of the month comparisons, or the day of the month, day of the week comparisons, things like that.
Thank you, Gregory. And our next question is, I believe, about Energy Expert. How much does it cost? Does each meter cost? And do you get a discount with multiple meters?
Yeah, for Energy Expert, we do charge a fee. That fee is $70 per meter per month. And then there's also a setup fee involved, a one-time setup fee. If you have more than 5 meters, that cost drops down to $65 per month per meter. More than 10 meters, it drops down to $60 per month per meter. And then it goes all the way up to their other incremental discounts all the way up to 50 meters. When you get more than 50 meters, it drops down to $45 per meter per month.
Thank you, Gregory. And how does a third party get access to our accounts, the customer's accounts?
So if you have a third-party vendor that you want to use to monitor your energy usage, all you would need to do is fill out a form. You'd contact me because I have the forms I can send you. You would contact me, I'd send you the form. We'd fill it out for the specific meters. We have to list every single meter that you want to share data with or share data from. We fill it out for each specific meters. You would sign the form and scan it or fax it back to me. And that essentially gives us permission to provide that data, your data, to a third party. So that's it is your data, and it can go. You can send it to anyone you want to send it to, but it is we do need your permission to do so. And that cost is, there's a cost to that, and it's like $30 per meter per month if we are downloading that information to a third-party vendor.
Thank you, Gregory. Does Energy Expert help with benchmarking?
Yeah, Energy Expert does. It uses historical data, and it has a modeling component that was not developed by the Department of Energy, but co-developed with the Department of Energy. And it's a modeling component that looks at the data, the type of building, primarily commercial buildings, looks at the type of building, and it comes up with a model of what the energy usage should be. In fact, the charts that we saw on the presentation, where it showed, what the expected usage should be, it showed the red area and the blue area, what is below expectation, what is above expectations. That was developed by the model that was created in Energy Expert. So it does allow you to benchmark what your energy usage is for a given year, for a given month, and it gives you a forecast of what that should be moving forward.
Thank you, Gregory. And one more question is, are you able to elaborate a bit about the Portland requirement for Energy Star rating? Specifically, for how long will a building owner have to report? For what time period?
So the regulation goes into effect for 2015, and from what I understand, this is it starts in 2015, and it's a requirement moving forward. It's a requirement that people will have to do moving forward from now until they decide to repeal the rules. For the period of time, it is for all of 2015. It's on a year-to-year basis. I'll say that. So for 2015, companies that are 50,000 square feet or above are going to have to report their energy usage in the Portfolio Manager tool, and that is all of 2015, from bills from January to December, our energy information from January to December. And then they'll have to do the same thing again in 2016, although those requirements will go from 50,000 square foot down to 20,000 square feet. So customers who have 20,000 square feet or above are going to have to report their energy uses from January through December of 2016 reported into the Portfolio Manager tool so they can get them an Energy Star rating. And that's, as far as I know, there is no end date on those requirements.
Thank you, Gregory. That was the last question. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today.